Hello guys, Jason here, back with your tutorial. Sorry it's taken so long. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at our idler animation today, and you'll see that I've set up this file for you in such a way that we have got two versions of our characters, right? The one on the right is what we will be animating ourselves, and the one on our left, if we jump over, we've got our idler and idle 2. That is our actual video reference. So I can just hit spacebar, play that back. And there we go. Alright, otherwise I could sort of just click in that window over there as well. Okay, so I can click in the window and it'll play over here, and then I can click back into this one and just jump back. And that's what we've got to work with. Alright, so the very first thing that we're going to do, and it's going to help us save some real estate in our composition timeline over here, is we're going to quickly do all the parenting, and then once the parenting is done, we can then just get rid of this column. Alright, so it makes sense that we always start, sorry for so many ums today, where's my mind? We always start with the extremities of the limbs, right, and we move up. So we can then safely say that front pinky, middle index, and thumb should all be parented to the front hand parented to front forearm, forearm parented to upper arm, right, and then upper arm parented to torso. Cool. Then we can go eyes. These can also be parented to the torso. Rope and rope 2 can be parented to the belt. Belt goes to the torso as well. Legs, which is basically just the bottom of his robe or skirt, goes to torso. And then we've got our back arm. All right, so we can go, let's see, back thumb, back middle, back pinky. Can go to the back hand, back index can also go to the back hand, and then we have the bell clanger, bell thingy, parented to the bell, and then it doesn't matter what we really parent this bell to in terms of the fingers and the hands, so I'm actually just going to parent it onto this hand over here, and that way when I adjust its rotation, my bell moves as well. Alrighty. And then we just need to make sure that we have then parented our, let's see quickly, hand to back forearm to back upper arm, and back upper arm to torso. Okay, so we can then just do a quick rotation check to make sure that everything works. And once you have done that, you'll know whether or not everything is set up or if you need to adjust. So I'm just going to speed through this test and then we'll carry on. Okay, so now everything is parented correctly and we can be happy with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on our little sort of tab over here for the parent and link, and I'm going to say hide this, and that's going to give us some more real estate to work with. Okay, so I provided this video now as reference, right? So one of the best ways to learn animation is to find something that inspires you and to practice recreating it as best as possible. Right? It's going to force you to then think about how one would go about animating certain things, and there really is hardly any better way to learn, to be honest. Alright, so if I play this back, we'll see that our character idles in the beginning, blinks a couple of times, and then he has like a little wake-up call, and then he rings his bell, and then he moves sort of back into his idle position. Okay, so let's go about recreating that. Okay, it doesn't have to look exactly, right? We don't have to have something that looks exactly the same. We just need, let me just lock this window so that we don't jump back and forth. I'll lock that one as well. We don't need to worry about doing absolutely everything. If you sort of want to either adjust it slightly or again get it frame by frame, then that's perfectly up to you. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so watching this reference, our body kind of chills for a bit and then bounces back. So I'm just going to go about doing that first. Alright, and there's a couple of ways I could do this. The method that I'm going to do is just use the puppet pin tool, and I'm just going to create points for basically the top of his head, the middle of the head, and the torso, right? And I can kind of just do the same then for my legs, and even though my legs aren't really going to move that much, it's just going to allow me to have that option should I need it. All right, so let's quickly then select my 2 layers that have puppet pin tools. I'll hit U to bring up those keyframes, and I could go and use Duik and generate bones if I felt like it, but I'm not entirely sure that that's necessary. So this one over here is going to be hip torso, just so that we know the difference between our 2 different hips. This one is going to be chest, and this one can be head. Cool. This one over here, we'll see that that's the feet. And then we've got like the knees, I suppose, and then we have the hip legs. All right, so now we can sort of tell the difference between those. Okay, so again, sort of just sliding through our character here. He kind of sways back and forth a little bit, and then he has his little wake-up call, and he leans back slightly, and then he leans forward quite far, and then back into his resting pose. So he sort of overshoots that position. All right, so let's see what we can do. If we just zoom out of our timeline here, you can see that I've provided 6 seconds. We don't necessarily need to use all of them, but kind of 2 seconds of idling, I think, should help set up the sort of narrative in inverted commas before we actually jump into the action. So let's see. All right, so I'm just going to hold down Command Shift and then hit my arrow keys on my Mac. Otherwise, page up, page down for you guys if you've got a full keyboard. And I'm just going to jump out about 10, maybe 15. Let's make it 12. 12 frames. 12 frames are good. And I'm just going to make sure that I have these selected, and I'm just going to have my character move back ever so slightly, just like that, and then I can select these and I can just sort of adjust them. Maybe he's bending his knees slightly, swaying on his feet. Actually, his feet, I guess, wouldn't move, to be honest, so let's just be subtle. And the entire thing about this idle animation is to be subtle, right? We don't want these massive movements simply because we had that. We want to be practicing what it is we should be focusing on. Right? So it's cool being able to animate exaggerated things, but the life of our animation comes in with the subtlety. All right, so then I'm just going to copy paste my initial keyframes. Just do that. Oops, not the layers. Okay. So if I play that back, my character sort of moves back and forth. And already I think he's moving a little bit too far. So I can sort of just adjust that ever so slightly. And I can really zoom in if I want to. And again, if you don't want to see this, reference, you can always just quickly grab our windows and pull it across, right? So I can really zoom in here and just make sure that I don't move my character too far. And then if I really wanted to get in here, I could also then apply or adjust rather my path using my combat vertex tool, right? So I could add a little bit of sway, like so, and back in that direction. All right, so this is basically just going to mean that he is swaying up and then coming back down into that rest. All right, so let's see how that's looking. And this one, it's a game of inches, right? So you can either just move forward, or you can kind of do what I'm doing here and just refining it as I go. It's really whatever works to you, but we don't need to worry about blocking out these keyframes as much as we did in our previous exercise. All right, so let this energy just flow through you. Get super guru. Okay, so I've now copy and pasted my initial keyframes, but I don't want my character to just sway back and forth between where he started. It's going to look a little strange. So what I am going to do is, again, I'm just going to zoom in ever so slightly, and I'm going to shift my character slightly beyond the point where he began. Ever so slightly, and that's just going to help allow for slightly more realistic movement, selling the idea that he's not just swaying, mechanically back and forth. He is in fact moving a little bit, a little bit beyond that point. So he goes back, he goes forward. I can definitely maybe slow that down and apply some easing, but we'll do that in a moment. And we're already on 1 second, so what I can do then is I can copy these keyframes over here, jump out 12 frames, paste them here, do the same for these. Alrighty, and that just means that he's gonna sway back and forth, and it is way too fast. So let me grab these keyframes, and we remember that if I hold down Option or Alt, I can select my keyframes and I can drag them out essentially. So we can make, let me just undo that so I can show you. So holding down Option or Alt, I can drag that out, and that will just increase the space between the keyframes. There we go. A nice little movement going on here. And that's already like about on the 2 second mark, which I think we're fairly happy with. Okay, and then obviously applying easing, which we'll do at the end, is going to help as well. Okay, so the next thing that really stands out to me is the fact that the eyes don't move with the head. All right, so that's nice and easy. We just grab our eyes, we'll bring up our position, and we'll just quickly create a keyframe for that. And then let's zoom in, and we'll just kind of try to eyeball, no pun intended, where the eyes would kind of move. So they would kind of be over here. Again, not much, not too much movement. And again, I can just grab my convert vertex tool and apply a little bit of an arch to that. And you'll be surprised how much that arch really helps. Okay, so my eyes aren't moving. Are they moving far enough? Yeah, okay. So then we'll go over here and we'll just copy paste that there. And we can shift our eyes slightly forward. And then we can jump back here and we can then just paste that there. Right, so let's see. Okay, so there's like a little bit of weird movement going on there. And that is maybe something that we'll then address. I'll sort of just do like a speed address for that. Okay, yeah. So we then just need to check that the eye's path, it would appear that the eye's path is, yeah, it's kind of just looping all over the place. So let's just grab this, grab that, and we'll just introduce, our body's swaying up and down, we can then just introduce a little bit more of an up and down arc going on there. Okay, and then, it kind of makes sense, right, that the getting these subtle movements is completely necessary, right? Because if we didn't get these movements right, then we would lose our subtlety. Okay, it would become sort of more noticeable. So the more subtle an action is, the easier it is to actually sort of pick up on mistakes. All right, so with exaggerated movement, then it kind of, you have a little bit more to hide behind, essentially. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a bit of a blink. I want to see, yeah, these will also sort of be out of whack with their arcs. So once I add a blink, I'll just quickly speed through that and you can see how I go about that. Okay, so to make my eyes blink, you'll see that if I bring up my scale parameters, I've already unlinked that for you. And if we take a zoom in here and we play with our second scale parameter, we can make our character blink or look shocked, etc. Okay, so our character's chilling back and forth. Let's maybe have him blink. So typically when humans move, we blink as we start initiating an action and sort of during that action, but it depends on the amount of force behind that action. All right, so we can maybe have our character sort of just blinking over here. And blinks are very fast, but at the same time, we don't want to have a blink that sort of doesn't sell the idea of the motion, right? So our character's chilling, he's gonna have like a nice slow blink, right? So think of a cat relaxing, as opposed to someone who's on edge and he's just blinking and looking around wildly. Okay, so then I can stretch that down to there, and I'll sort of keep it visible just so we can still see where they are. And then I can copy paste that. And let us see if I've given it too many frames. No, it's looking pretty good. Back and forth. So we were just allowing a little bit of time for that eye to close and open again, as opposed to snapping, right? So snapping close, snapping open. Okay, so then I said that I was going to focus on adjusting the sort of like the strangeness of that movement. So I will speed through that, and I'll check you guys on the other side. Okay, actually sort of just like watching it at the moment. I think it's just going to make a bit more sense once the arms and things are moving, because kind of looking at the torso, it appears to be working at the moment. Okay, so I am going to procrastinate with the arms because I'm lazy today, and I'm just going to hit up the belt movement first. All right, so our belt is going to react to the sway of our character, all right, and we're going to have to adjust the position of our belt as well. And to be honest, I should have parented that to the torso. Oh, I did, but it's not going to be affected because the puppet pin tools don't affect the actual position. Okay, so we're going to bring up the position of the belt. We're quickly going to just animate that. So we'll just follow our keyframes sort of exactly the same way. So if we scrub through that, body moves backwards, so our belt can move maybe slightly back. Let's see if that's too far. Okay, now that seems to be working. And then we can go to this one here. Boom. Shift it slightly more forward than it initially was. And then we can just grab the second keyframe and move back into our sway position. Cool. So our belt is now kind of moving with that. And the sway of our ropes are going to kind of be in the opposite of that sway, right? Because they're going to be following through on that action and overlapping with it. Okay, so let's see. We move our character slightly backwards, and that takes place over this amount of time. So what I can do then is just jump here, and I can rotate this ever so slightly in the opposite direction of what it actually is. I can do the same with this rope over here. And I'm just going to use these as guides, and then I'll sort of overlap them. Okay, so I can copy paste this keyframe, copy paste this keyframe. Maybe we push them slightly more in that direction. And then we can grab our second keyframe here. And then we can sort of just, let's quickly select these keyframes and see what they look like. Okay, so very slow. These ones would kind of be moving a little bit faster. So I'm just going to actually drag these out. Make them occur over a little bit less amount of time. And then I'm going to overlap. Okay, so that one would be moving slightly slower than this one. So I'm going to shift that one back slightly. Okay, sorry about that. I think you heard the sound in the background. Someone coming into the office, feeling very much akin to like being caught watching porn. Anyway, okay, so let's see how this is going. Okay, so I've got a little bit of sway going on with those ropes. And then let us work on our arm for now. Okay, so our arm is obviously not being moved at all by the puppet pin tools that are affecting the torso, right? Which means that we are going to be animating the position slightly for that. So I'm just gonna quickly close these up. We're not dealing with all of that. And then let me just quickly select that. Okay, so we're gonna start off with the position. Let's take a look. So actually, idiot. Let us quickly just bring up these keyframes again. All right, so position keyframe, and we can jump forward. And our character, wrong one. Our character is kind of swaying back and forth, right? So we can kind of just move that there. And again, I do want to have a bit of a roll, like an upward roll onto that motion. The reason being, when my character moves backwards, my arm, his torso rather, is kind of sort of shifting upwards. All right, so if I play that back, yeah, so we've got like a fair movement kind of following along, and it actually goes back maybe a little too far. So let's just quickly shift that over there. There we go. So that looks like a nice fluid motion. And then what I can do is, rather than copying and pasting, let me just quickly grab this and shift it in that direction and try. It's always difficult getting up in here when it's so small, but we'll have a bit of a movement like so. Okay, back and forth, and then I'll take it back again. And I'm not going to copy paste it just because, let's take it back over there. By moving it, I can get access to this little handle a little bit easier. Okay, so play that back. Okay, slightly out of time. But again, I think once we add easing to that, it's going to work a little bit better. Okay, so now we've done that. We can now do the rotation of our forearm and our hand. All right, so let's quickly just make some keyframes for that. And as our arm's moving backwards, I'm just going to pretend that our character is quite like sort of super chilled. So this arm is maybe just going to first go forward and then come back to rest. I like over there, like straightening his arm. Okay, and then over here, this one at least I can copy paste. Rotation doesn't have the option for that. Okay, this is not really working moving backwards like that, so I can actually then just quickly delete these 3 keyframes. Let's see what motion would work best. Okay, so our character's moving back. What we can do, what we should do, is add some rotation to this as well. Right, so our arm moves back. Let's have it move ever so slightly, like so, which is then going to allow this arm a little bit more breathing room. Okay, and then I can copy that, place it back in its position, copy that, place it back in its position, and then I can take this one, copy paste, and this one, copy paste. Okay. All right, so maybe it could be a bit more subtle, so I can adjust that towards the end. But we've got our sort of motion going for now. And then our hand, we mustn't forget, can also animate slightly. So let's go. So that goes back. Let's have our hand kind of again, just moving slightly that way. And then for those of you who don't know, I'm holding down Command, and you can also do it with Control on Windows, where when I drag, it moves in tiny increments as opposed to whole digits. So you'll see that I'm working in like point values at the moment. Okay, and I can actually just copy paste that. So that just allows you again to really control your subtle movement. Okay. So again, I am then going to, let's just quickly check our reference and see how that's looking. Cool, so already I've added like way too much in terms of movement, so I'm gonna have to tone it down a lot more myself. And it's a very easy mistake to make, because you're thinking, oh, that's a small movement, that's a small movement. Meanwhile, it's way too big a movement. Okay, so what I will do is at the very end, I think, once I've sort of got this section of the animation down, I can then just quickly speed through adjusting them slightly. Okay, so I'm going to take these fingers as well, and I'm going to rotate them too, just to apply a little bit of some natural movement. So let's see, our hand is going back this way. So I'm kind of just going to close my fingers just a little bit, just like that. Over there, and over there, and over there. Okay, and then what I can do, and then is just copy paste. Right, and again, these movements actually seem to be quite large, so we might need to tone those down a little bit as well. But I can then just copy paste these keyframes here as well. Okay, so let's see how that's looking. Going back and just playing it back. So I'm sorry if this is coming off as a bit of a slow burn animation, or tutorial rather, but I do want to make sure that I get across the necessity of the subtlety as well. All right, so let's just drag this one out a little bit more. And our fingers could probably work if we overlap them a little bit more. All right, so let's think. I think we have our maybe thumb and index finger moving at the same speed. And then we can just quickly come in on our timeline here. Let's shift the front index by 1. Let's shift the rotation by 2. And let's shift the pinky by 3. Let's see if that helps space out that animation slightly. There we go. So it's got a little bit more of a the sliding backwards and forwards. Okay, so the next arm, right? So that next arm is going to be moving slightly as well. And because I can see that my current front arm is moving a little bit too much, I can just try and tone down what it is that I'm working with here. So I don't have to come back and do this. Okay, so I'm not going to work too much on the position of this arm simply because it's being hidden behind our torso. So I'm just going to work on the rotation for now and see if that's something that needs to be then adjusted with the position in a moment. Right, so that moves slightly back, so I can move this slightly backwards as well. His breathing with it is like so. And then I can copy, paste that and push it slightly, ever so slightly. And then there's this one. Okay. So our character's kind of chilling at this point. And then I can obviously add a little bit of movement to the fingers as well. And then some movement to the bell. Yeah, okay, so let's just quickly go back to our reference and see what it is that we need. Okay, so my movements are a lot, like quite large. So I definitely need to adjust those. So let me quickly speed through that and then we'll continue with the tutorial. So I've kind of just made it a little bit more subtle at this point. I was messing around with the knees to see if I needed to change the direction they were moving in. I think it's kind of looking okay for now. Okay, so the next thing that I can do, because our figure's not really ringing the bell yet, right? We're not going to do too much with our fingers because that's going to be a very large action. But I do want to do something with the clanger in my bell, just to have that sway ever so slightly. Okay, so let's go back to the very beginning, hit a keyframe, just make sure that's set to 0 so it's pointing like straight down. Alright, and then as our character sort of moves this way, his arm kind of moves a little bit to the left, slightly to the left as it moves down. So then I'm going to make my clanger move slightly in the opposite direction, ever so slightly, like minus 0.5. Okay, and then as my character comes back up again, I can swap that over into the positive values. So maybe we just make that like plus 5, 3.5, and then back again over here. So then I can copy paste that one there. Let's see if that's helped. Okay, so my movements are actually very subtle. So I can go a little bit further with that. So maybe I just make this minus 1.5. Let's see what happens there. Okay, so very subtle, but obviously when we clang the bell itself, maybe 2, let's see. Okay, it doesn't seem to be doing much, does it? Let's see if I really push it. Yeah, it's there. So maybe I just need to not be as subtle with that particular motion. Okay, so that's 0, negative 5.5. Let's make this positive 5.5, and then we can adjust this back to negative 5.5 there and see if that's helping. Okay, kind of. Very slightly. Alright, so I'm not going to have his fingers on this hand move simply because they're going to be a big part in our next sort of part of motion. So now what we can do is we can just then refer back to our video. Cool, so there he blinks. Alright, so that's the anticipation for the movement, like I said. So the blink occurs, the left arm comes out, the torso moves back slightly. We've got the ring. That arm sort of comes back down to rest before the ring ends, and then we shoot back into that position. All right, so let's do the blink and the torso, and then I can focus on my arms. Okay, so let's do that. Let's zoom out a little bit on our timeline. Let's come over here, And let us see. So I'm going to give it about 10 frames. Let them rest for about 10 frames and then have this incident occur. All right, so I'm going to grab my eyes. I'm going to hit my scale. And I'm actually going to just copy paste those. So Command or Control C, Command or Control B. Okay, so he blinks. About halfway through that blink, or let's say actually, what, over here. Let's have our torso then move back slightly. So that's going to be our chest and our head. So I'm just going to make some keyframes for that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe. Might be a bit too fast, but we'll figure it out as we go. Just going to drag that and move it sort of there. And then maybe that comes forward a little bit, like he's moving his chest forward. I'm just going to refer back. I don't necessarily need to. Okay, yeah, so that the whole torso basically just goes back. All right, so that's fine. So I can actually push this maybe a little bit further, and then I can push that in that direction. And then if I find that that's not giving me what I'm looking for, I can also play with the rotation of this ever so slightly, right? You can see, actually no, sorry, I parented everything to my torso. And I don't feel like I'm parenting everything because I'm lazy. So we've got that movement there. Obviously our eyes need to move while that happens, so let me just bring up the position as well. That is going to start obviously when the body starts. So position over here, and we can just bring that over here and maybe slightly up. There we go. Okay. Then what we can focus on is our sidearm over here. So this one, let's see, that movement isn't really affecting the position. So I'm just going to then work on the rotation of that. So let me jump quickly back to where the movement begins. And I'm actually just going to make rotation for all of these fingers, for all the sort of front arm layers. It would help obviously if I did it for that one as well. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we'll start by affecting this animation. So let's bring the arm out. Let's bring the front arm in like so. So we've got this movement here. Boom. Okay. Zoom out a little bit on my timeline here. Okay, so that will happen there, and then I'll adjust my fingers to kind of just close up a little bit as well. It should just sort of help round out our animation slightly. So I'll shift my wrist slightly, and then what I can do is I can adjust this finger. Let's have our fingers widen actually rather than closing for this one. So there, and there. All right, and remember that we need to sort of just adjust those slightly. So front forearm is going to stay the same, front hand is going to stay the same. Thumb, I think we can leave. Index finger, let's shift by 1 frame. It would help if I zoom in a little bit over here. So 1 frame for you. Sorry about this. Working on a touchpad. So I do apologize. Actually, I'm going to be stupid, make my life a little bit easier for myself. Okay, 1, 2 frames, and 1, 2, 3 frames. Okay, so let's see how that goes. Cool, so that comes out. And then the bell sort of rings, but our arm doesn't stay stuck out until the end of that bell. Okay, so it goes out. And it actually kind of overshoots and then comes back again. So we can apply that to our upper arm, and then some extra sort of just like overlapping or follow through rotation on that hand over there. Okay, so again, let's go quickly over here and we can work with our torso again. But let's focus on doing this arm rather than maybe getting the timing slightly wrong. Okay, so I just want to see what exactly he does with the bell. Cool, so that arm does move. I can adjust it a little bit more. Then it comes up. Our character blinks as that happens. That's obviously while our body moves, so that arm is going to be slightly behind. And then the ring twice. Okay, so let's see if we can mimic this. So I'll grab this one over here. I want my upper arm first, hit the rotation on that, hit the rotation on my back forearm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this one, let's bring out like so, not too far, not too far. Let's just jump back to that. Okay, so that's there, that's cool. This one over here, we can bring forward like so. Okay, again, maybe a bit too far, just taking a look at our reference. Okay, so that arm comes forward. And as it stops, the hand starts rotating. So let's do our hand over here. Rotation. Let's go there. Okay, so that one you can sort of rotate in any direction that you want. I'm going to send it forwards. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll send it backwards. Not too far, really. 2, 3, 4, 5. I can copy my initial keyframe. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. I can copy my keyframe at the back. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can copy my very first keyframe over there. Okay. Alright, so there we've got our movement. And I can make this sort of come to rest a bit slower by dragging this keyframe out, which is it's going to help it come to rest. Okay, so let's play this back and see what we've got so far. Okay, a little bit of movement and then the bell tolling. Alright. Does anyone remember that Billy and Mandy episode where Grim got all dark and he was like, ask not who the bell tolls, for whom the bell tolls. Sorry, I'm tired. Okay, so that movement's actually a lot faster, so I can actually do that quite nicely. And it stands in contrast to the chill movement that we've had so far. So, ding-a-ling, and then that arm comes back down. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay. So that elbow is looking a little bit strange on the back arm because even though our hand is moving, our elbow kind of needs to have just a little bit of movement with it as well. So let's just quickly grab this one over here. 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's move that way slightly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That way slightly. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I did actually get that over there. And then I think we can bring it pretty much back to its resting point. Okay, so we've got that going for us now. And we know that this arm over here comes back before the sort of tolling finishes. So let's just quickly see what our timing looks like for that. Okay, so yeah, it comes back down the same time as that arm, but obviously we've got overlapping rotation occurring during that move back. Okay, so let's do that. My arm moves back. See, sorry, I've got such a terrible memory. See which direction these hands go in. Okay, out and then back in again and overshooting. Okay. Alrighty. Let's just quickly find that arm and find the hand. Okay, so our arm shoots out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's have it. And I mean, you might be wondering why I'm working with 5 so religiously, and it's kind of just a habit of mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not something that has to be done. Like you can work on 6s, you can work on 4s, whatever. It sort of floats your goat, to be honest. Okay, so it goes out. And I actually need to replace that keyframe. So we're going to have it go out too far. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we'll have it come back in slightly, like so. And then that way, if I play that back, I can actually push that maybe even further, like so. And we can adjust our fingers as necessary as well, so cool. And we can increase the time that takes, because we've got the time to use. Maybe not that far though, so maybe something like that. yeah, that's looking kind of cool. And then our arm comes back down. So let's just quickly find our upper arm over here. So our bell clangs, clanger, clanger, clang, and then as it comes to rest, let's do it from here. So as my sort of hand starts coming to rest. So I'm just going to click on my rotation again, and I've already got the rotation on my back forearm, so let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 maybe. We'll bring it back nice and slow. So I can then copy paste that initial keyframe and copy paste that initial keyframe, and boom, our arm comes back down to rest. Okay, so that's the cool thing about being able to copy paste keyframes. We've got it all sorted. Okay, so when it comes to our puppet pin positions, that's going to be slightly more trickier than just copy pasting the very beginning, because we don't want that change to take over this entire timeline, right? So I'm going to copy paste these over here, and then when I get to where I want it to be at rest, I can copy paste those two. Right, so then that should, yes, bring that back down for me, which is fantastic. And then at the exact same time, I can also then adjust my front upper arm. And I'm just going to be working basically on top of each other at this point. So you'll see that most of my keyframes, apart from like my fingers, they're all occurring at the same time, but I can always go and adjust them later as necessary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? And I will bring that back to our first frames. Okay, so we are animators and we are lazy, and this is what we do. We make shortcuts for ourselves and we just copy paste things. Okay, so then what we can do is we want our fingers to obviously move slightly differently. So, oh, and yes, let's not forget our hand is also supposed to overshoot slightly and then come back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, come back to rest. So that's where we can then paste that. Okay, and then we can just sort of shift our fingers out. So let's take a look at this. One frame for that one, deselect, one frame difference again, deselect, and one frame again, and let's see how that looks. Okay, so I think that the movement on the hand here when it moves backwards could be a little bit slower, definitely. So let's just quickly find where that takes place. So that's this one over here, and I'm literally just going to, not Command, Option or Alt, and drag that out slightly. Okay, and I wonder actually if maybe if we got rid of this one. I want to play around with that in a moment. But I think also once we add easing, life will sort of move on like nicely as well. So again, sorry that this is taking so long, but I do want to sort of make sure I get it right for you guys. Okay, so then the same thing over here, position, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's copy paste the very first keyframe. Yeah, because we're doing position, sorry, so there we go. So we're going to move that then back into its correct position, which is great. Yes, cool. And then we need to focus on like the clanging of the bell and then those fingers overlapping in the background. Okay, so I'm going to focus on the bell. I don't need to see my torso anymore. Let's just clean this workspace up a little bit. We might as well keep the back arm open because that's kind of what's driving it, right? So let's do that. And let's take a look at the bell thingy and the bell itself, which is actually going to be the first thing that we're going to animate. By dint of the fact that it would still, even though the hand is moving like so, it would still kind of fly a little bit further out. Okay, so let's go like so. And I'm just going to copy paste my initial keyframe and then bring it back a bit, and then I can literally then just copy paste those two keyframes there. And then as my hand comes to rest, it can come to rest as well. Okay, and I think easing is going to help as well, but I might have pushed that movement a little bit too far. So especially if we're starting on -3 on that rotation, and then we're bringing it up to -7, so maybe we'll just make that -6 degrees. This one over here, let's just make like 2.5 maybe. Bell rotation. Let's make that one because it's going to dissipate. So let's make that one minus 4.5. And then this one can maybe be like 1.5. And then come to rest again. Oh, what have I done to my upper arm? Have I deleted that? Oh no. Give me a moment. Give me a moment to fix this issue. There we go. Okay, that was weird. All right, I'm going to speed through doing the bell again and then we'll carry on. Okay, so that's kind of going nicely. And then we've got our bell thingy. Now the bell thingy is going to be cool because it's obviously going to move in the opposite direction. So let me zoom in here so you can actually see. As my bell moves in that direction, my clanger is going to move in the opposite direction. So it's going to go ding. Doesn't necessarily need to make contact. It's sort of just going to go maybe that far and then opposite direction, ting. Ting and ting, like so, and then come. It's not going to come directly to rest. It is going to overshoot and overshoot and a little bit more overshoot, and then it can come to its position facing straight down. All right, let us see how that's turned out. Make sure that I've done it correctly. Ding, ding, ding. Lekker. Okay. Okay, let's move. Let's actually see what we've got so far. Okay, so chilling, I definitely add some rotation to our clanger while he's chilling, just a little bit more. It's not really looking great to me at the moment. I need to do these fingers still, and then I can add some blinking towards the end. And I definitely need to have my belt ropes react to that change in body position. Okay, so that one over there. There we go. So over there, rope. Let's get up our rotation values. We'll make some new keyframes. And as my body moves backwards, let's have them just sway. And I'm kind of just guessing at this point where it's going to sway, actually. So let's have it sway that way. And then maybe 10 frames out, we can just have it sway not too far. So let's just quickly copy paste. Which one was it? This one? That one over there. That one over there, and we can push those ever so slightly. We say make this like minus 1.5 and minus 2.5. Okay. Cool. Then they overshoot, and then 10 frames out, they can come back to rest again. So we can just do that and do that. Okay, and actually, before these come to complete rest, we can actually push these slightly further even. Okay, so they go out that way, back down. So these we can push slightly more in that direction, and that's going to give us our illusion of follow through. Now I can paste, which one is it? This one over here. This one over here, maybe. Nope, wrong one. Okay, and then again, we'll just move our, sorry for moving around, we'll just shift these up ever so slightly so that they don't move at the same time. Okay, we're getting there, we're getting there, we're getting there. Yo, this office is stuffy. Oh, just give me a moment, sorry. Okay, yeah. Alrighty, let's play it back. Let's do these fingers now. Okay, so pretty much the same principle as what the bell is doing. We can use our hand as a guide. So let's actually then, we can just minimize these as well so that they're not confusing. Let's minimize, well, we can keep the bell open, but we can close down the clanger thingy. Okay, so fingers forward, let's see, make sure that we do the same thing as our reference footage. Cool. Okay, so our fingers kind of move in tandem with the bell, but then we've obviously overlapped our two different fingers. So let's jam onto, which one is it? That's not the index, not the thumb. So that's this one and this one. Rotation keys, let's go. Okay, so I'm gonna do this, slightly down this way, more up that way, and then they're going to sort of overshoot, and then I'll bring them back to their original positions. Okay, so they're moving at the same time as my clanger, which isn't going to help, so I'm going to select these and shift them down slightly. And it looks like I need to move them a lot more, actually. Okay, just make sure that I'm not moving them in the incorrect position either. So, fingers here, down, up. Okay, so yeah, let's just move them a little bit more. So like so, and like so. Like so maybe, and like so. Probably over-exaggerating it a bit much at this point, but let's see how it goes. Like so, and like so, and then can actually come to rest from there, so I can get rid of those. So let's see now. Okay, boom, so those are going. And we can overlap again, so let's move our pinky and have that at a slightly different time than our... Ooh, it looks very strange. And it's probably because I've shifted it so far down the timeline, so let's just quickly do that. Okay, so that's kind of working. Pinky is either too far down the timeline, or we should move our middle finger. No. Pinky, one frame, looks a little bit better. Okay, so let's see again. Such lovely movement that Chris has done for us. Boom, boom. Okay, and I think it's just then a case of making sure that they don't overlap too much. Okay, so then I'm just going to quickly bring these back over here, and we're just going to increase the spacing between the fingers slightly, like so. And then rather than overlapping with the hand, we can just have them still be a bit more visible with the gaps in between the fingers. Okay. And then coming to rest. Like so. Let's see if... Okay. And then let's shift this back. Pinky finger. also be able to get it to work a little bit better if we added a little bit more keyframes to these as well, so that they're not moving at the exact same time as our bow is. Okay. Let's see what we've got so far. Okay, and then I'm just going to quickly add some blinks. Let's just quickly zoom out here. Okay, so he blinks as we move into it. And I kind of feel as though, I mean, typically when... Sorry, I'm just busy thinking. Okay, no, we'll do that, and then let's shift down our timeline a little bit, and then I'll just quickly grab the eyes. I'll hit U, and I'm just going to copy paste this blink, and then I'll have 10 frames in between. Paste that blink, and it ends just on our timeline there. Okay. Okay, 10 keyframes, way too much. Let's have it sort of do like a fast blink. Faster than that even, otherwise he kind of looks like a little bit of a slow character. Yeah. Okay. And I guess the next thing that we would then do is then apply easing and make sure that everything is happy. So I'll select everything, hit U. I would recommend you guys do a save just in case this messes up. But let's see, make sure that we grab all of our keyframes, and then F9 or right click and apply easing. Okay. Our body movement, again, is a little bit too intense. I would definitely change that. But I think that overall, I want a little bit more follow through on this hand. And then I think we can call it, not make this tutorial any longer than it actually is. I don't need to see this anymore, so I'm going to close that, jump back into this timeline over here. Let's find my front hand. Okay, so... moves back and forth. I'm not having it sway at the moment. Here we go. So sway here, back down. I want to overshoot that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Come back. Okay, so that's actually already then. Let's rotate that in the opposite direction, like so. Come forward. Let's push it a little bit further, and then have it come to rest. Okay, so let's see how that looks. Cool, so we got a little bit more overlapping, and that just worked out quite well. Okay, so that is our idle character animation. I hope that you guys were able to follow along. You can check the link below for, the description below for the link to the Google Drive file with the work files. Make sure to download the entire folder straight off of Google Drive, and then open up the AEP file, and you will have this. Okay. So yeah, hope it made sense. Let me guys know in the comments below if there's anything that you would have liked to change, or if there's any other suggestions you would have made. Otherwise, I'll check you guys in the next one. Ciao.